Hello, and welcome to Replay Value. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have a huge breath of relief when Kekkai came up as the topic from the RNG gods. After a mixed response to my Goblin Slayer video, what a way to open up the series, by the way. Coming back with a show that I unabashedly love has me pumped. So welcome back to the 5-hour Analysis Blitz. Today's submission asked for an analysis of the symbolism of photos and death in Season 1's 11th episode for Kekkai Sensen. For those who haven't seen Kekkai Sensen's first season, this combination of photos and death might seem like a weird mix, but the way that Kekkai Sensen views photography and photographs and the ever-present importance of life and death in a show whose stakes arrive at end-of-the-world levels are less at odds than you might think. Photographs are ever present in Kekkai's narrative. Not only is Leo's camera an important plot device in the first episode and a reminder of his role as the observer, which I talked a lot about in my ED analysis, so give that a watch if you're interested in meta-narratives and viewer unification, but they're also in every episode in the OP, where thousands of photos come together to create Helsalim's Lot. And while that's an awesome production element, seriously, Kekkai is super inventive when it comes to stuff like this, it's also an important symbol that gets fleshed out a ton in episode 11. And we open that episode on a photo of the Macbeth family. Mary voices over her family members and notes that she has no powers, a blemish which is marked by white paint, a motif we really haven't seen with the exception of the ad catches. Mary, better known to us as White, is the only member of her family without psychic powers, while her twin brother, Will, but better known to us as Black, has more than enough powers for the two of them. White feels a sense of inferiority because she lacks these powers, even though no one in her family begrudges her for it, and also her brother's aversion to using his own powers, even when it would save him a lot of trouble. The reason why she has this inferiority is because her parents use their powers to help people, and presumably her brother will do the same, meaning that she's the only one without a clear purpose. As she says,
力の有無に関わらず、みんないつか死ぬ。ならば、生きている間に何をなせるのかを考えなくては。
This leads White to finding photography, and when her father asks her why there are no photos of herself, she simply replies that that's not the point of it. As she says later, if she were to die, the photos that she took would remain. They would be something that she had accomplished while she was alive. But after Black takes a dive into the river to try and save her camera, White declares that the camera was just a placebo, and that him risking his life was far worse than whatever meaning the camera holds for her. This works on two levels. Firstly, the obvious one, that photos are simply placeholders for people, events, and places. You can have all of the photos in the world, but it won't bring someone back from the dead. And secondly, Black's purpose, what he's going to accomplish with his life, is so clear, while White's purpose is completely up in the air. The photos she'd leave behind are nothing compared to what her parents and what Will are capable of doing. That's the placebo. Photography is White's way of telling herself that she'll be leaving something tangible behind and that she can do something that Black can't. This isn't true, of course, something that she's acknowledged by lending out her camera to others, which is what causes Black to jump into the river. Later that night, Black tells Mary not to call photography a placebo and hands her a photo that he had taken of her sleeping. It's a blurry photo, and yet she starts sobbing all the same. The photo is proof that she lived, and it's also proof that someone values her more than she values herself. When someone takes a photo, they are capturing that moment from their viewpoint and whatever is in front of the lens forever. What Black has done in this moment is say that even when White is sleeping, that's important to him. Her doing nothing is valuable to him, and that's why White is willing to betray Leo to try and save her brother, the person who she cares for more than anyone else. It isn't until White takes Leo's camera and sees the photo he took of her, conveniently located after his most important person, Michela, that she starts to realize that maybe she made a mistake. But what seals it is when she flips to the next photo on the camera, one that she took of Leo. It's a reminder of why Leo is important to her too, as she asks Sonic to save him. Photos are proof that whatever we see in the image lived and was important enough for someone to immortalize that moment forever. But what about death, I hear you say from the comment section? Sure, photos are proof of life, but what does that have to do with death? Well, besides the obvious inverse relationship of life and death, the King of Despair, one of the most underrated anime villains of all time, quote me on that, asserts that White is correct. We will all die someday.
死は聖者の特権だ。
And thus, we discover that the King of Despair is immortal, and where his name comes from is the despair of being forgotten by death, which is to say, never being truly alive. His desire to destroy the world is so that he can sleep forever, to prove that he lived. And in this way, he is a tragic character, a being that will live forever without the universal destiny of every other living being. Life is fleeting, death is permanent, one cannot live without remembering death. And yet, the King of Despair exists beyond that, a fixture as eternal as the photographs and videos that he tapes himself onto, only doing so presumably because he believes that he is about to pass on eternally and will leave behind proof that he too existed. Don't even think for a second that this is the last of me talking about Kekkai Sensen. If anything, this video is just a nice supplement to a longer video talking about Kekkai's overarching storyline to its first season. And so we'll definitely be back to talk about the Macbeth siblings and the critical importance they add to the narrative of one of my favorite shows. And for the many of you who asked for Liz and the Bluebird to be analyzed in a mere 5 hours, first of all, you're nuts, but I think you're going to like the Patreon analysis coming out later this month. So until then, thanks for watching.